My friends, I have hope. The American people know what's going on, and support for Black Lives Matter is going down. And I feel bad to have to say that, because the original idea of what Black Lives Matter was supposed to be is not what we are getting. And none of these people in the organization, those raising money, and the Democrats will say anything about it. Of course, they'll condemn the violence, but will they point out it's all being done in their name? No. Black Lives Matter is completely corrupted. And I'm not saying it was perfect when it started, but when you see people like Dave Chappelle say, we want justice for those who lost their lives, I think about a perfect story that exemplifies what this should have been. Philando Castile. He's the dude who was legally armed and he got shot and killed in his car. Legal gun owner, shot and killed. The cop panicked. The dude said he had a gun. These are the kinds of things where we say police reform, a legal gun owner should not have lost his life. Instead, what do we get? Widespread looting, widespread rioting, fires in the streets, a complicit and complacent Democratic Party. And I have enough. It's like they want me to vote for Donald Trump. And I'm seeing all of these posts over and over again. Flashback to 2016. It's 2016 all over again. Trump signs are everywhere. Biden signs nowhere to be found. I've actually seen a couple Biden signs only in the past month or so, which should be very strange considering we are 39 days, I believe, from the election. As if we're going to know what's actually going to happen, as if anyone believes the election is going to be legitimate. But come on, Biden's not even campaigning at all. But so I have hope. And I'm not hopeful because I like what's happening. And I'm not hopeful because I think Donald Trump's going to win, as if it's part of a tribe. I'm hopeful that American people are saying enough to the insanity, to the far left, to the violence. Now, if that gets us Donald Trump, I'm actually quite satisfied with the peace deals that Trump's accomplished. And I gotta tell y'all, it is kind of annoying and frustrating when I see there's a lot of people who don't like Trump. And I know it's funny because I probably fell into this camp last year where all the Trump supporters are like, Tim's not giving Trump a fair shake. No, I get it. Look, a lot of people say just because they're not going to, support the far left insanity and they'll fight against it doesn't mean they like Trump. No, for sure. I felt similarly. But now with the peace agreements, and this being, you guys know that like foreign policy was always something I paid attention. It's probably because, if I'm going to be self-analytical, I was, growing up in this political world of George W. Bush and the Iraq War and Afghanistan, and it felt like a stain on this country, a mistake. And that's what I grew up looking at. And I saw all of this information, all of these videos, and Obama perpetuated a lot of the same. And Donald Trump wasn't doing anything too promising. But now what do we see? Peace agreements, withdrawing from the Middle East. And now I'm actually happy. It affects me. So I wonder why all these people are saying, they don't like Trump and they think he's awful just because Trump is of bad character. And I know a lot of people like these things about him. Cassandra Fairbanks, for instance, a good friend of mine, she's like, she loves Trump's attitude and his demeanor. And I'm not a fan. But that's cool. We're friends. And I think the foreign policy stuff is a slam dunk for America. And it falls in line with this America First idea. So let me just read you the news, because I know you came here for a reason. I don't want to go on a rant, but we'll loop back into this. Is America suffering protest fatigue? Support for Black Lives Matter demonstrations falls to 39% from 54% in 3 months amid fresh unrest over Breonna Taylor ruling. I'm hopeful because these people want to go out and they want to riot. They want to destroy. They want to burn things down. And I sometimes feel like we're trying to tear down a skyscraper with but a little hammer. And it feels like we can't do it. Now, look, I know a lot of people watch my videos and I'm eternally grateful. It's crazy. I'm just a dude living my life, telling you how I feel and looking at these stories and expressing my opinion on them. For the most part, I do fact checking, right? So I guess there's more than just, giving my opinion. But sometimes it feels like no matter how much we share these stories, no matter how much we try and tell people, the lies persist. And I can't tell you how many times on my Facebook page I've been copying and pasting this just because people are like, Breonna Taylor was sleeping in her bed when the police kicked the door in and just killed her. And it's like, no, You don't have to be happy or defend the cops to tell the truth, to be honest. The cops were serving a warrant, and there's a much deeper backstory. But when they were serving the warrant, as they were legally supposed to be doing, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend shot a cop in the leg. They fired back. Even Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal pointed this out, and they're getting dragged over it. The reality is, these stories are not so cut and dry, but I'm seeing high-profile leftists lie over it. It feels like we're not making any headway. We're trying to tear down this monolith to fake news. And then I see stories like this, and I go, yes, people realize the lies. People are sick of the violence, and they are speaking out. Now, I don't know if I should trust the polls, because I don't know what the polls show. But if the polls are biased against the right, I'd be willing to bet support for Black Lives Matter is way down. What I find interesting is they say that support for Black Lives Matter among black voters is at 89% or 90%. Yet we also have numerous polls saying that Trump's support from the black voters is some say it's at 14%, which I find interesting. That would mean that there are many black voters who want to vote for Trump, but do support Black Lives Matter. I wonder what they're seeing in this, because Black Lives Matter for the longest time said they wanted to disrupt the nuclear family. And now what do we get from that? You get kids who grow up without strong leadership. And I'm not even talking about, traditional marriage. The studies, there have been studies showing just at least two parents, someone who can teach that child and have a strong family. Why would you disrupt that? It seems ridiculous. It would be damaging to them and their community. So I don't think they're helping. Now, look, as for the voters, I can't say, for the black vote for Trump, I find it interesting, to say the least. But for regular Americans to now drop support for Black Lives Matter at 39%, it gives me hope that people recognize the far left identitarianism is too much. It's extremist, it's racist, it's bad. But let me actually just read you the story and we'll see what's up. Daily Mail says support for Black Lives Matter protests is falling across the country after months of unrest that has seen people killed, shops burned, and frequent clashes between activists and police. A new poll shows that just 39% of Americans now approve of the protests, down from 54% in June, while 44% now disapprove of them. University of Michigan political scientist Christian Davenport put the change down to compassion fatigue, as outrage over videos such as the one of George Floyd has faded, with people now wanting to return to their everyday lives. And the more they inundate NBA, NFL, MLB, the more the riots carry on. The people are saying, enough, I've had enough. Just want to live a normal life. Want to hang out with my friends and do what I enjoy and grab a bite to eat, but I can't even do that. And you are punching us in the face, figuratively, over and over again. Nah, not happy about it. They say the shift also appears to have been driven by perceptions of violence, with almost a third of Americans saying the protests are now mostly or always violent, up from 22% 3 months ago. Meanwhile, the number of people who said the protests were always peaceful fell from 27% to 23%. And the number who said they were sometimes violent also fell from 51% to 47% now. The figures will be watched closely by politicians on both sides of the aisle, with both Joe Biden and Donald Trump presenting themselves as the law and order candidate, with the November election looming. It also comes amid fresh unrest across the country, following the indictment of one police officer over the fatal shooting of Breonna Taylor, though not for the shots that killed her, which sparked the unrest. And now they're pushing lies. I think it may be that many people still believe the lies. And as much as I did this whole thing in the early video, like maybe people are waking up. It doesn't, they might believe the lies. And that actually might be, it's unfortunate, but it might still be a good thing, because think about it. If they think the cops really did something this atrocious, then they should support the protest. But the protesters have crossed the line to such a degree they can't. If people really believe the cops are as bad as they say, now they're looking at the protesters, the rioters, and saying, y'all are just as bad. The reality is the system has issues. Reform, I think, is a good thing. But we can't just lock people up to appease violent mobs. They stand in the street, they attack people, and I am sick of it. I'm sick of it. Look, the rioters were near my house. It's one of the reasons I wanted to move. Now, I've been trying to move for a long time, and we've been preparing the move. And it's, I'll just say this. I predicted right. That's it. It's kind of scary to think about, right? Since the beginning of the year, since last year, I've been trying to find a new location to expand my business and bring on more people and start something, a legit news site. And that's what we're working on. We'll see if we can get there. The election's kind of dominating everything and the workload is intense. So I decided, you know what, with as crazy as everything is getting, and this was like before COVID and all that stuff, before the riots, I just started looking out in the middle of nowhere because I had a prediction. There's going to be riots. It's going to get bad. And you do not want to be in these cities, especially by next month. Finally, I was able to get a new place. I am out of these cities. But it was only a couple months ago at the height of these riots, the helicopters were at my house. And I was worried. And that's when I became a gun owner. I see this stuff and I'm not having it. I'm not having it. I want to feel safe. I want to feel secure. And I want to know that my family is safe and my family is secure. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is the violent riots are persisting. They're attacking elderly people at restaurants over and over again, harassing people. And just last night, they chased someone down in their car, stopped him, and started bashing on his vehicle. Why? Because he was just trying to drive around this protest. I don't care. Bend the knee or else. That's what they want. Not from me. Now, I will say, to be completely honest, I've mentioned it several times, I love living out in the middle of nowhere. It's great. We're building a mini ramp right now for skateboarding. A half pipe, It's not a full vert half pipe, but for those that aren't familiar with skateboarding. But yeah, we got cool projects underway, and we're going to make videos, and we're going to have a good time. And so I'm happy to be out. I'm happy to just move further away and finally get out and get away. Maybe that's something you do when you're older. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I like looking out my windows and seeing trees and mountains, especially considering how violent things are getting. I feel safer. I absolutely do. I'm in the middle of nowhere. You can't come anywhere near you can't come anywhere near my house without going on my property from a far, far away place. And I was talking to this dude on the IRL podcast who was saying he's out. He's getting away from these cities. He's buying a big old plot of land in the middle of nowhere. Good. Bring back that pioneer spirit. Let's go find new land. Let's spread out, because this mass concentration of people in these big cities is just causing these problems. It becomes increasingly difficult to function when you have 300 people who can march through a city and just loot and destroy everything. When you have all these people in these big cities costing us the low end, $2 billion in damage. And that's the $2 billion insurance payouts. It's not including the damage that won't be paid for. Then we got serious issues. And I think a lot of the problems and even the complaints, the warranted complaints the protesters have about faceless police who don't care about them, well, that's because you live in a giant concrete block stacked on top of other people and the whole place smells like sour milk. And you go outside and the cop's like, I don't know you. I got to do my job. Don't mess with me. Okay? So now you're mad that these cops don't know you. Go move out somewhere outside of these cities and you'll find smaller police departments. You can go in and you can meet the cops. There aren't that many of them compared to like how many are in New York City. The problem, I think, is not entirely cities, but it is partially these cities. I think another big factor is that we are losing our moral base, our moral framework. The idea that these people think they can go and destroy innocent people's lives to get what they want is a total loss of morality. You can complain about the system. You can go out and say the cops are bad. Hey, man, I'm right there with you. I don't think all cops are bad, but I think there are bad cops. So if you say, let's talk about reform, I'll say, I hear you. I think some of these people take it way over the top. All cops are bad. That's just ridiculous, man. Clearly ridiculous. You are making so many crazy assumptions about what that cop is thinking. It's probably a regular dude or lady. They want to hang out with their friends and they're at work. And their job is to make sure the system stays afloat. And the left doesn't like it. They hate the system. They hate the status quo. Listen, we have a lot of work to do to live peacefully. And the more you pack into these cities, the smaller your bubble of freedom is. And that means a tiny, tiny amount of people who are violent can go around destroying things. And then when you get a DA, when you get these politicians, these de Blasio, these Cuomos who allow it, then everything just falls apart. I'm going to show you another story. Let me just, I'll save some of these other stories for later, but let me show you this. They say the shift in support for the protesters was most pronounced among white Americans, 20% of whom believed protests were mostly or all violent back in June, rising to 33% now. White Americans were also less likely to view the protests as all peaceful, down from 27% to 23%, and also less likely to view them as sometimes violent, down from 51% to 47%. A similar shift was observed among Black Americans, though to a much lesser extent. 7% saw the protests as all or mostly violent back in June, compared to 10% now. I think it's funny when the media says 93% of the protests were peaceful. Nobody's complaining about peaceful protests, dude. I don't care. I like peaceful protests. I disagree with, disrupting the nuclear family and like the weird Marxist stuff. Not a fan, but you got a right to protest. I love it. It's what makes this country great. I think if you want to burn an American flag, hey, so long as it's your flag and you're burning it safely, burn what you want to burn. The destruction of that flag is the ultimate symbol of what it represents. Freedom. I don't want to live in a country where they would threaten you and jail you for criticizing the government. That's not what America is. America was founded on defiance. We have a right to stand up and call out the government. Do I like when people burn the flag? No way, dude. I love this country. I love the flag as a symbol of freedom, liberty, and it stood strong for over 200 years. It's amazing. And America's made some serious mistakes. You betcha. But I love that flag, and I love this country. I've been to many other countries, and I will tell you, one thing that really, really ignited my love for this country was seeing other countries. If only these people knew as they marched around. Go take a vacation to any of these countries. And I'm not talking about these Potemkin tours where we've seen these lefties. They'll go to like Venezuela and get a tour and be like, everything's great. I've been to Venezuela. Everything's not great. I didn't go on a Potemkin tour. I had locals show me around and I was like, man, that's brutal what they're doing to these people. I don't want to live like that. And I don't want to let these people take over. The more violent they get, the more destructive they get. I'm not having it. So I'll tell you what. If you want to burn the flag and it's your flag you own, you paid for, that's your flag. You do your thing. And I'll wave my flag, and both of these will be a symbol of freedom. But it's true. Burning that flag is a tremendous symbol of freedom. It's incredible. Something you can't do in many other countries. Now, I think you got to be safe when you do it. That's the big thing. I've seen them try to like burn them in the street, and the cops will put it out. And they're like, hey, man, I have a right to burn these flags. Like, dude. You do, but you don't have a right to burn a flag in a public setting that could get people hurt. You can't just go randomly start fires places, which they've been doing. So now we're seeing the ramifications. Support is tanking again and again and again. And, if you want to engage in a peaceful protest and now your movement's being co-opted, I mean, I'm sorry to hear it, man. I remember this happens all the time with a lot of, hippy dippy lefties. They'll be like, yo, man, we want to protest and say like police brutality is bad. And then Antifa shows up, smashes everything. And they're like, dude, and I feel bad for them. My grievance, my complaint is with the extremists, not the peaceful protesters and the bleeding hearts who want to march around with their little signs saying Black Lives Matter. The only problem is they've been completely co-opted and they won't say anything. Joe Biden's not going to call out Black Lives Matter. Nope. They painted Black Lives Matter in the street. I want you to think about this before I finish off. 39% of people support Black Lives Matter and they painted it in the streets. How embarrassing this must be for all of you. To use taxpayer dollars, typically in violation of the First Amendment and the law, to paint streets with a political message that most people don't support. Bravo. It was almost like they were trying to set themselves aflame, figuratively and literally, by allowing these people to go and do this stuff. Well, let me show you this tweet from Bethany S. Mandel. I'm having 2016 flashbacks, and I'm not sure why Democrats aren't. In reference to Justin Gomez saying Biden campaign called a lid at 9:20 a.m. today. Harris also has no public events on her schedule. Meanwhile, Trump has events in Charlotte, North Carolina, Jacksonville, Florida. Pence is on a bus tour with stops in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, Minneapolis, Minnesota. 40 days. Bethany says, you've tried this strategy already. I'm not Donald Trump didn't work for you 4 years ago. This is what happens when you spend years pretending that people voted for him because of a phantom Russian conspiracy instead of accepting that he won a legitimate election. I know what the polls are saying, but I also know what they've said last time too. I also know that when I drive around suburban Maryland, I see almost no Biden signs. And when I drive in rural VA, I see wall-to-wall Trump signs. Me too. I lived in before I moved, we were living in suburban Philadelphia on the Jersey side in a blue district. Trump signs everywhere. One day, someone took down their Blue Lives Matter flag and their neighbor put up a Biden sign. Consider it. It's not going to be an easy battle for Trump. Some of these people really do hate him. But I wonder, I really do, if support for Black Lives Matter is in the gutter and it's this bad, and these Democrats have based their campaigns on this, and these Democrats are painting this message and people are not happy with it, then it doesn't seem like things are going to go well for Biden. I'd be willing to bet the polls are worse today than they were last time. I really think so. They say that we've improved our methods. How will you know you've improved your methods? The polls were wrong in 2016, but mostly what was wrong were the pundits who felt like Trump couldn't possibly win. The reality was Trump had a percentage to win. I think 538 gave Trump a 25% chance to win. That means he could win. It's that simple. And he did. And so people say the polls are wrong. Well, they were mostly off by like 1 or 2 points because they missed that, and that allowed Trump to win, something they didn't see. They claim they changed their polling methodology. Yeah, I think they did. I think they had to. But how will we know if they're right until after the election? In fact, maybe we'll never know because of the way the election's been totally destroyed by the Democrats with the mail-in voting scheme. These polls may be wrong. They may have made them worse. Landlines are going away. I don't believe they're getting it right. I don't. So should I trust this poll about Black Lives Matter? Honestly, I'm not entirely convinced I should. But it's something we've seen repeated over and over again, and it also makes sense. I've seen now, I believe, 3 or 4 polls showing that Black Lives Matter support is tanking. And if that's the case, why should I believe the Democrats will receive any benefit from it? I don't. But I guess with about 39 days now, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm hopeful because I think people are waking up. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at youtube.com/Timcast. That is my main channel. It is different from this one. That'll be at 4 p.m. and I will see you all then.